Last week, we showed you the navigation software we trust to get us from Canada all the way to Japan, and you had questions. Are we using AIS with it? How do we connect all those external devices to a single computer? What brand and size monitors are we running? And can you even get weatherproof screens for setups like this? And of course, the big one that everybody wants to know, what did it all cost? We're Blaine and Janice, and this is Tangaroa, our 1969 78-foot aluminum yacht we found abandoned in Alaska. So far, we've ripped out the old Detroit diesels, rebuilt and marinized a pair of Cummins truck engines, and tackled wiring, grinding, and fabricating from bow to stern. But we're just getting started. There's so much more to come. We've got big plans for Tangaroa, and the goal isn't just to live aboard, it's to take her across the Pacific to Japan by way of Alaska. If you're into boat work, engine rebuilds, and making old things new, subscribe and join us on our never-ending sea trial. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's question and answer. We are filming from beautiful Antioch, British Columbia. This is Canada's largest ghost town. We've been here for like 3 days and we have been all throughout these trees and we still have not seen everything. It's like going to Disneyland around here, but been a fantastic trip so far. We're going to get into the questions here. So we were talking about our TimeZero software on the last video and not a whole lot of questions this week, but a few, so we'll get to them. All right, guys, first question of the day comes from RiverRandy66. The TimeZero product seems like something I would like. You mentioned the integration with the Furuno radar array. Which one did you choose? Would you go to a different direction today? Also, you mentioned an outdoor display for your in-laws, I think. What monitor did you use for the bridge of that boat? Was there some magic box that had to go between the sonar transducer and the TimeZero computer? So I'll start off on the first question there. What radar array did we use? So we use the DRS-12A from Furuno. It's not the new digital radar, so it still uses a magnetron, but it is last generation radar, so it's by no means old, and it is an Ethernet-based radar. So it requires power and ground and an Ethernet cable. That's it. And just to compare with what we removed from our old radar, had a bundle of cable about that big around that went to it. So massive, massive difference between the new radars and the old ones. The DRS that we went with, like I said, is the 12A, and we used the 6-foot boom on it. So it's pretty big boom as well. And I mean, it picks up birds flying by. So we're pretty happy with the choice. As far as will we do anything different with that today? Unless money was no object, no, I do the same exact thing. I don't need the latest and greatest best. I just need good enough for us. And the DRS-12A is more than adequate for anything that we'll ever do with it. You asked about the display on the in-laws boat. It actually came from overseas, and I don't remember the exact brand of it, but it is a completely waterproof monitor and a stainless steel case. All the connections that go to it are all sealed with like multi-pin Canon plugs, so it's a really good setup. They have had no issues with it, and it's also sunlight viewable, so it's got a really bright backlight on it for if you're in the flybridge and you've got sun beaming directly on this thing, you can even still see it. So turned out to be a really good unit. Unfortunately, I don't remember the brand. Last question that you asked was whether or not the system had some sort of a magic box that went between the transducer and the sounder and the TimeZero. Yes, it does. So most of the new Furuno equipment is all done via black box. So for every single unit, so the radar, the depth sounder, even some of their MFDs they offer in a black box module, they come as literally a little black box, and it connects with Ethernet cable up to your just a standard Ethernet jack into the PC, and then the TimeZero picks up that signal and displays it on the monitor, whether it be radar, depth sounder, any of that stuff, and it all seems to work pretty well. We've been really happy with it. Next up, we've got a question from Kev Bjork 1. Looks like a really great system. Are you using AIS with it? We didn't start with AIS. We pretty much just started with the radar, and that was it. But we have upgraded. We are now using a Simrad RS40B VHF head unit, and it does AIS, and it's not the standard model that just does the receiving. It does receive and transmit right in the VHF radio itself. So it's integrated in flawless. It's got a NEMA 2000 connector, and it displays all of the AIS data right on the TimeZero software. And you know, I used to think, oh, you know, AIS would be kind of nice It is really, really handy. I mean, you can obviously see things on radar or whatever, but one of the places that we really noticed this to be super handy was in the Gulf Islands, Washington State Gulf Islands between Vancouver Island and Washington State. And they've got the Washington State ferries that run through there. And you know, there's no straight open ocean areas. There's passages that go all through those islands. And you don't always have visibility. And you definitely don't always have radar visibility past certain points. With the AIS, though, you can see those targets before they even come into view. So when you're in these channels and you've got a Washington State ferry on the way that's really big and you need to make way, and you're coming up to a point where you're going through a pass and have to take a left turn and you don't see them, you can still pick them up on AIS and you can prepare before you even get to that point. And it's not a big surprise as you round the corner and there's a big ferry barreling down on you. So yeah, that's a super, super handy function, and we have been very happy with it since we integrated that in. Have another question from a familiar question person, Rick Dunner 5181. Thanks, Rick. Did the surplus police laptop use the already installed ADL system, or did you integrate a different system using the location receiver? I'm not entirely familiar with what you mean by ADL, and Janice isn't either. She was thinking maybe it was similar to the Canadian CPIC or Prime systems. If that's the case, then no, none of that was installed. But the way that the GPS receivers work in those Panasonic laptops, they're just regular GPS antenna input with a serial output on them. So they've got a serial signal that goes out, and TimeZero can pick up that serial signal and integrate it right into the system. So we didn't really have to do anything. All that data was available right on the laptop already. We just had to tell TimeZero where to look. Funny story too, we were actually at Prince Rupert a couple weeks back, and there was a urchin boat, I think is what it was, that was next to us. So they go diving for urchins, or I'm not sure how they get them. But he had on his dash a old Panasonic or a Police MDT, or maybe it was just a Tough Book that was doing his navigation for him. So yeah, they work pretty well for that stuff. And we've got another familiar name here, Liam Greenwood. How do you connect your external devices to the PC that runs TimeZero? Do they run over something like Ethernet, so you just need an Ethernet switch? It's actually a combination. So the NEMA 2000 data is all brought into the PC via an ActiSense NGT1, which is a little gateway unit that connects one end just to a standard NEMA 2000T, which would all your other devices would connect into, and then it just goes to USB to the computer. So basically the satellite compass, the AIS data coming in, my tank level senders, which are also viewable with TimeZero, all of that integrates in with just a USB connector on that NGT1 module. And we do have a backup of that as well. We've got an NGX module as well. Currently that one's doing duty sending, it does NEMA 0183 as well. And that one's doing duty sending our AIS data to AIS Hub. So we're a mobile AIS station that collects data from other AIS transmitters and transmits it up to AIS Hub so they can post that online. That's also how our real-time tracking works. So if you guys are interested in that, check out www.onboardtangaroa.com. Get to the top menu and find our live tracking there. So you can follow us anywhere we are, every time, instantaneously. So good stuff. So for the other devices, there's really only two other devices currently. We have our DFF1, which is the Furuno Fish Finder, so Digital Fish Finder 1. That's an earlier fish finder model. They now have DFF1 ultra high definitions. They have DFF3s, DFF3Ds, a whole host of fish finders. We just needed a fairly basic one for now. So it's the DFF1. I think I paid like 130 bucks on eBay for it. And it even used our existing depth sounder transducer. So I just pulled our old fish finder out and integrated in with that transducer, and it goes to TimeZero. There's also the radar. So both that radar and fish finder are connected via Ethernet. So their little black box modules have an Ethernet connector. Actually, the radar doesn't even have a black box module. It literally just Ethernet plugs right into the base of the radar and plugs into the Ethernet switch. So yeah, both of those go to an Ethernet switch, and then one goes to the PC, and that's how it picks up all that data. And pretty easy to set all that stuff up. Just another little interesting tidbit here, guys. Behind me back here, if you can see it, there's a bit of an operation going on. Back in the day, this was a big mining town. They had a copper mine here, and up on the hill, you can't see them from here, but I can just basically see the top of one chimney over there. There was a big smelting operation over there, and they dumped all their slag down into this big slag pile here. Well, there's a new company out here now called True Grit Abrasives that is coming in here, and they're taking all of that slag. They're literally mining slag. They're coming in, dumping it all onto a barge, barging it out of here, and they're using it for abrasives like cut-off wheels, sanding pads, whatever you name it, shingles, and that stuff is all getting reused, which is really cool. But yeah, they fly in, guys, for like 4 or 5 days, load up a barge, take off with it, and then the guys leave, and there's just one guy here, hangs out, watches everything, and then next time they need a barge full, they just set a crew of guys up and take a little bit more out. Okay, we got a question here from Janunya3128. So can you pull in engine functions from the ECUs of the Cummins engines? Not really, no. That is one feature that the TimeZero doesn't offer. It does use one PNG, which is the NEMA 2000 or the J1939 out from the engines. But what it uses is the fuel burn data. That's pretty much it. And once you have that fuel burn data within the TimeZero software, it can give you range circles on how far you can go with the fuel that you have on board based on what you're burning and your speed. Nice little function, but no gauge data or anything like that. Quite honestly, the kind of boats that I've been on, you're never using the MFD for gauge displays anyway. Every boat that I've worked on, been on, power boats, they have dedicated gauges for their engines. Having them on your MFD is just kind of a, look, it can do this, but you really don't use it that much. I could see it being helpful on, say, a sailboat where you've got minimal real estate to use and you just have maybe an MFD at the helm station and you want to have your engine data there as well. But for most users, I don't really see it being a huge benefit to have that within your MFD or your navigation software. All right, next question up is from McH Furniture Restoration. On the monitors, what brand and size screens did you use? Standard off the shelf versus marinized or weatherproof, since you're in a wheelhouse, yes? What resolution and refresh rate works best for the TimeZero at that screen size? By the way, love both your channels, and the live stream was a kick. Looking forward to the next one. Glad you enjoyed the live stream. We're thinking we're going to be doing that about once a month now. But as far as the other channel goes, we do a lot of exploring on that one, and like behind us here, this is the Antioch's General Store. At least that's what we've researched it to most likely be. And there's buildings like this all throughout here. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check out our other channel, Exploring the World on Board Tangaroa, and we go into all sorts of places like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. But get back to the question, I digress here. What brand and monitors, what brand, screen size, and models did you use? So I used the ViewSonic, what was it, the TD2230s. They are a 22-inch touchscreen monitor, which is the, I think 19, whatever the standard monitor resolution is, 1920 by 1440, I don't exactly remember, but 60 hertz refresh rate on that as well. So just the native resolution of the monitors and the standard refresh rates are what I run on those. They are not marinized, they are not waterproof. We've got a nice dry pilot house, so we're not worried about that kind of thing, but definitely not something that you want to use if you're in a flybridge or something like that. It's just not going to handle that well. What else in the question there? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, they've been pretty awesome. And like I said, they are touchscreen as well. So they behave just like a standard high dollar MFD unit. We actually had a comment here come in from Peter B82, that's actually quite bad accuracy. I'd never trust some software like that instead of going for Furuno, etc. You can get all the integration you want and an industry standard accuracy. So I'll address that. The accuracy of the GPS system is judged by the antenna or the hardware, not by the software displaying it. The resolution that we're seeing, or the accuracy that we're seeing on our system, is judged by our SCX21 module on the top of the mast, our Furuno SCX21 module, which is known to be a pretty good unit as well. As far as never trusting the software and going for Furuno, little fun fact, TimeZero, the TZT Touch MFDs from Furuno run the TimeZero software. So this is literally the software that you would be using if you were using a brand new Furuno MFD unit. So yeah, it's plenty good. All right, guys, we're here to the question of the day now. And this is probably a really good question because it's going to be what's on the mind, the top of the list of pretty much most people out there on when they're purchasing MFDs or navigation software. This question came from Blue Mew. How much did you spend on all of the modules? While my 9-year-old MFD can do all of the functions you mentioned, radar, pilot with overlay, sounder, current charts, it is definitely underdone being on a 9-inch touchscreen monitor, though waterproof. But I have seen more recent MFDs with HDMI output, so you could hook up to a 65-inch TV if you wanted. So I made up a little list, and just to be clear, all of the things that I made on this list, all of this is based before we started working with TimeZero as ambassadors. So this was our purchase price for all the equipment and the software that we bought for the last 5 years. So this is what anybody would have paid for any of this. So for starters, TimeZero Professional, $1,400 US. That's the price that I found online. I don't remember exactly what it was when we purchased it, probably around there. All these prices are in US dollars. The Digital Fish Finder Black Box Module, $180. Actually, I'm just going to skip all the dollars here. I'll just give you the total at the end, but I'll tell you what I bought. So the Sounder module, the radar module, the actual radar hardware and the sounder hardware, the PC to run it all, the 2 monitors, the gateway to attach the NEMA 2000 to the computer, a little router to run it, and all of that comes in at $4,780 US. And a lot of that I did buy used equipment, just so you guys know. I am very thrifty when it comes to my equipment. I have no problem buying off of eBay if it's a known good piece of equipment, as long as it's not ancient. And all of this stuff is fairly new stuff. Just as a comparison, and I use 2 22-inch monitors, and I'll get back into that in a second, but a single Garmin GPS Touch modern MFD 22-inch is $11,850 for one, and that gives you one touchscreen module. Now, I'm pretty sure that's probably got HDMI where you can plug it into other stuff and maybe some other features, but I'll tell you the difference here. So, like I said, $4,700, I've got most everything that will do. It's got some other bells and whistles. You can connect the Garmin stuff up to your Victron equipment or whatever. Once again, stuff that I don't use because I have separate stuff for that. But I've got 2 22-inch monitors. Not only 22-inch monitors, they are touchscreen monitors. They are not repeater monitors. They are not showing what's on the screen of the MFD. They are independent workstations. So it's like having 2 MFD units by themselves. So I can have one display, one completely different visual with navigation charts or my sounder, and I can have the other monitor show planning modes or weather or another navigation screen, because a lot of times we like running 2. We run 2 on navigation. We have one zoomed in, so we make sure we see all the little rocks that may be hidden in a zoomed out display, and then we have the other display zoomed out so we can see our destination and how far we have to go. So it's not just as simple as I've got a big monitor that I can plug my MFD into and see it on a big screen. These are independent workstations, and like I said, they're touchscreen as well, so they function just like an MFD. So yeah, there's some functionalities you can get with the MFD stuff. there's also some functionality that the TimeZero definitely does better. Also, with the TimeZero, your quality of your equipment, or what you build your equipment for, is literally that. You have no limitations on your IP ratings, so your environmental protection, so waterproofing, any of that. That you can build it any which way you want. If I wanted to, and I was on a flybridge with all of this stuff, I could build a PC that was watertight. They make them. I could get a monitor that was waterproof. I could have all the benefits of the waterproofing that you get in an MFD in any of this. It just depends on how much money you want to spend on the computer stuff, which would still be a lot less than $11,000. Yeah, you can build it as powerful. I found that a lot of times with even the new MFDs, when I'm using them, when you're zooming in and out of charts and you're moving around, there's delays and you can see it reload the screen. You don't get that with TimeZero. I can scroll in, scroll out, I can move the screen around, and it is seamless. There's no stuttering, there's no reloading the screen. It is right there, right when you need it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's where the name TimeZero came from. It is just instantaneous for everything. And the only time you get less than that, if you put it on a really, really weak computer, which there's not a lot of super high-end requirements for this software. So you can put it on pretty much anything and it's going to run pretty well, anything modern anyway. And you can put it on something really powerful and even better. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention, because there were a couple of comments about it, is the ability, I think one person said they were actually able to just take their tablet and run, I think, Navionics, that's what it was. Navionics on their tablet and do everything they needed to do on there down in the comfort of their boat. TimeZero actually has an option for that as well. It's called the TZI Boat, and it comes as an Apple app right on the App Store. And it's not just you can see where you are. It is another workstation for your nav system. You can create routes. You can see where you are. You can get radar overlays. You can get depth sounder overlays in there, all within an Apple iPad or an iPhone. They are word down the grapevine as they're working on an Android app. Not sure when that's going to be available. Unfortunately, we haven't gone a lot into that in our videos because we're Android people and we don't have any Apple stuff to play with that on. So we're probably going to pick up maybe a cheaper Apple iPad when we get to Ketchikan here soon and do a little bit more with that stuff. But yeah, it is a fully functional workstation on your tablet. You can change course there. It's got autopilot controls. You can change your routing, move waypoints around, and it's all real time right on the TimeZero software at your main PC. So pretty good setup. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for joining in. That's it for this week's Q&A. We really appreciate all the questions. That's what makes these Q&A sessions keep going. So thank you so much for that, and we'll see you guys all next week.
If you missed the first video, you can click the thumbnail on screen to watch it now. And if you'd like to see where Tangaroa is in real time, head over to onboardtangaroa.com for our live tracking. Plus, if you're considering TimeZero for your own boat, you can use the promo code Tangaroa for 10% off.